Okay, so I'll start with a script. Members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting must use their full name, full name to Zoom access. I'm going to skip ahead here. As a preliminary matter, this visitor, excuse me, I haven't done this before. So as a preliminary matter, I, David Sharp, Visitor Services Advisor, Coordinator, permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Matt Peel.
Here.
Mary Malaves.
Here.
Josh Gray.
Here.
Liz Holland.
Here.
Peter Morrison.
Here.
And David Sharp is here. Janet Schulte will be here shortly. Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please state the affirmative. Amy Baxter.
Here.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. This open meeting of the Visitor Services Advisory Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by the law. This meeting will feature public content. For this meeting, the Visitor Services Advisory Committee is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that any other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to share, quote, screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by this meeting. All supporting meeting materials have been provided to members of this body, are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in the conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify themselves. And for items of public comment, any members, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and must be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. Therefore, that's it. So Josh, if you want to go forward.
All right. We've got to welcome Amy. Thank you for joining us today. Just real quickly, we've got to approve the October 12th minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the October 12 minutes of the Visitor Services Advisory Committee?
So move.
All right.
Second.
They are approved. Next, we're going right into our talk with Amy. I'm sure all of us have a bunch of questions for her, but maybe you could start, Amy, by telling us, recently the town, the chamber, everyone came together on how Stroll will move forward. If maybe you could fill us in on that and how, everyone's pivoted to make things workable for the COVID environment.
Okay, so thank you very much for having me again. I know I missed last month, was a little complicated, but so I was going to talk a little bit about outdoor dining, which is what I came to do. As far as stroll, let me think. I have to get an update. I'm just coming back from being away from stroll, but Marina is working on that with the chamber as well. So I think all of that's just rolling out. We're working on all the holiday Thanksgiving and tree lighting and stroll. I think there may be some edits to some of the routine a bit, but trying to be somewhat normal. Certainly we're going to have, I think there might be some edits to Santa's route, but we're still going to have the market down in the parking lot at the A&P Stop and Shop, and same activities and things of that sort. We have a mask advisory still, not a mandate, so we'll kind of see how that goes. Most of the outdoor dining has been pulled up. All of the streets will be pulled up by that time. We have India Street remaining. We certainly will allow some of the sidewalk. I think Rosencrown's going to give it a shot, and maybe backyard in some of the sidewalk locations. And we'll have, the market and things of that sort going on. So, we're kind of just still working on that. So as far as I'll certainly take questions on anything related to our group here, but I wanted to come on and go to different groups and discuss outdoor dining in general, and all of that, because we're in the process of determining really what we're taking from COVID and moving forward with. What are the things that worked, what didn't, and certainly outdoor dining is a big topic of conversation, and there's views on both sides. And so I'm trying to really kind of get out there and see, what different groups thought of it, especially when we talk about visitors and the benefits of it, how we can continue. My opinion of it, frankly, is at first, obviously I loved it. It was great last year because there weren't a lot of people. And then this year, there were a lot of people. So there was a lot of different things with it. So my opinion moving forward is we're determining a sidewalk permit. A lot of other towns have that. Cambridge, other cities and stuff have a separate sidewalk permit. There's some legal things we need to do about alcohol, but I think there's some areas that we can consider on a case-by-case basis for sidewalk dining. Certainly Broad Street and others were fine. Main Street's a little bit more difficult, so I don't know about that, but we're creating that for sure, that we'll have a sidewalk permit. The discussion comes as far as outdoor spaces moving forward, closing streets, having the case where we had some in parking spaces, things of that sort. And my opinion is that requires a lot more work on the town to create pedestrian spaces, to create, different types of parking situations, safer bike routes, things of that sort. My opinion is to get to that point, to get to the European feel that everyone loved, is we need to do more work creating pedestrian spaces, plazas, things of that sort before we can allow that. Certainly, we're also dealing with the fairness issue. We're certainly going to create a permit fee and use of space fee for those areas, because a lot of restaurants got up in arms about folks getting free space, but some private spaces got free parking lots. So those are kind of the areas we're dealing with. So the first thing we kind of want to come here is really just not for me to talk as much as to get feedback or questions, what people are feeling from the community, from businesses, because, I'm thinking about retail and other businesses too that are impacted by this positively and negatively. We're thinking of other ways we can have temporary street closures or stuff on weekends or things of that sort. So we want to start that conversation, and this is a good group to do that too, with visitors and keeping them in mind and the community in mind as far as what the feedback is for us on this whole project. So hopefully that's enough of a lead in, and I can certainly take any feedback or questions as far as that's concerned.
How about the restaurateurs? I have to imagine, John Keane and the folks at Ventuno. I mean, that obviously added a lot of seating, a lot of this summer specifically because of no restrictions indoors. I'm sure it added a lot of revenue. So are you getting like a lot of pressure from that side to continue things?
So there's a lot of different situations. A good question. And technically the rule was this was not adding occupancy in this situation. It was to spread out. We certainly had folks violate that.
Right.
And, like everything, they're going to push, like your kids, push, until we come in and yell at them. So it's fine. But for the most part, like I know Ventuno and Taylor, he didn't want to be inside. He didn't want his folks inside for a good portion of this.
Right.
He wanted to be out outside. So,
Right.
but I also know for certain restaurants and have told me, well, if we're going to keep doing this, and in the future, when we add a permit fee and we add these things, it would increase the occupancy. For some of them, because of the location and increased occupancy, they would need to make a huge investment in upgrading their kitchen or their systems, because sometimes serving that area was not easy. So if they're serving a full restaurant, Ventuno, and then he's trying to serve that area, he wouldn't necessarily want to do it.
Right.
Unless he spent a whole lot of money. We certainly would have to commit to a permanent type of situation, which in some places we're certainly not able to do.
Right.
So I'm not getting pressure. I think some folks, yeah, absolutely want to do it. And the sidewalk folks, I think Rose and Crown like to continue it. Fine, we'll figure something out. Backyard barbecue did a nice job. It didn't really cause us too much trouble. I thought it would, and it didn't. Lemon press area, lots of complaints. So we, shortened it up and tried to do that, but either they manage their line or there's no table. So they have a dual problem there as well. And again, it wasn't intentional. They weren't trying to be difficult. They just, the business model was, and the location was difficult. So it's where I think I'm establishing the framework to be able to do this. And we can make decisions certainly based on location and different things of that sort. So it gives the select board the opportunity to consider proposals and gives the restaurants the ability to, come up with a plan that we can consider. But I think closing streets, not happening for the most part. I'm kicking around the idea of Oak Street being a pedestrian way if we did deck it or something, and could be used for various types of things. The market, different types of things. So how can we use it to benefit multiple people? Do we close Federal sometimes once in a while on a weekend, or do we do special events that way to make it more pedestrian friendly? So I think everything's on the table. I think we certainly had issues with the street closures and the barriers and stuff like that. I think they were fun and cute and everyone painted them the first year. Everyone's sick of them now. So, which I get. So the other part of that too is establishing HDC and other type of requirements for how it should look. A lot of restaurants, what they'll say is, oh, you had plastic chairs. Well, they're not going to invest unless they know it's long-term. Totally get that. They had vendors, alcohol vendors, give them umbrellas for free during this, but we're going to eventually say, nope, no advertising, so we allowed a lot of things. So we're in the process of tightening up what it would look like, giving the board the ability to see, okay, what would this look like, and have these things established within the framework of our regulations so that we would have the ability to consider things. But I think we need to do a tiered process here as well. But I think we had 2 good years of experimenting, which was fun. And we would never, ever get that chance in any normal day. They would never let me do any of that. So it was fun. We got to learn some stuff. I liked the lighting. I liked having, chatter and people outdoors. It created, liveliness to downtown. It created even more business for some retail who stayed open later because folks were walking around more after dinner and things of that sort. So it's taking those elements and how do we continue with those? And then how do we on the exterior create, the foundation for the town to maybe expand this,
Mhm.
in the future. So, but yeah, I take any, comments on that from anyone as far as, or anything you've all heard.
I'll shut up in a second, but the just what you're saying about the livelihood, increasing downtown and the lights and everything, has Remain weighed in on any of this?
I don't know. And I don't know, Janet, if you've talked to them as well, they certainly, obviously their core goal is to get people to remain downtown and bring life to it. So they're supportive. And I know the chamber, is working on, different grants for folks and stuff like that. So we're trying to make some decisions so folks that might be applying for help or things like that know what the town would consider. So I think they're all in favor for that. But again, I think I wanted to, they keep wanting me to do outdoor dining task force. And I think we need to look bigger and look more, the infrastructure at the location, the community level. Outdoor dining I can do in my sleep, whatever, fine, we'll permit it. Yeah, fine, I'll shove them over there, write them a liquor license, bing, bam, boom, done. That part's easy. It's just understanding the other effects, the parking, the everything else, deliveries, trucks, accessibility.
Right.
Cobblestones are adorable and historic, but ADA does not like them. So I learned a lot of ADA rules this year too, so which is good. But and we're widening our sidewalks in a lot of areas, which is great. So that might open up some opportunities. So yeah, that would be my, opinion. But I really, certainly hear from the restaurants every day about everything. It's
Right.
wanting to hear from others as well. And the good stuff too, because I usually only hear the complaints.
Right.
So yeah.
Does anyone have a comment or question? Matt?
Yeah, I had a question as far as liquor licenses with the establishments. Do they have, if they're going to do outdoor dining, does it have to be in an enclosed area? I know, like when I was from Washington State, if you had an outdoor space, it had to be some sort of a fence or something around it. It just couldn't be in the open.
Correct. So we did have some allowances for things that maybe wouldn't be in a normal basis, but the ABCC does have patio guidelines that do require some sort of roping or things of that sort to establish the area. However, there's ways to, so there's a couple legal avenues we're going to have to go to if we do continue with this. We would have to do an alteration of premises in normal course, which we're going to do for the private properties right now with parking areas, if the muse is going to keep their space, fairgrounds, whatever. With the public spaces, we have to legally rule for allowance of alcohol to cross a public way to these areas to create a contiguous space. So there's, they've given us a kind of the legal framework for that, but that's why we're going to have to look at it and consider it with that framework as well. The problem with our streets, it's different in certain areas where they can either put the tables up against the building. We can't really do that because of the trees. So because if we put it up against these buildings, it would shove all the pedestrians into trees and going around trees. So we've had to put them away from the buildings. It's easier in a parking space because you can enclose that a lot better. So that's a part we do have to work out. So yes, it does require that there is no technical public access to the areas where alcohol is being served. A rope line or something that distinguishes the space is sufficient. So that's why only certain places that would work as well. So we're working through that right now. But our beautiful trees and stuff kind of create a little bit of an issue there and lack of parking. So yes. And, there's a couple other things that are still liquor wise allowed that expire. The outdoor dining part expires in April. Technically here it expires in December. There's legislation on the books. They're trying to work through possibly the future of outdoor dining in Massachusetts. So there might be, more laws or regulations put into place because of this, because I know all the lobbyists are working on it for sure. There's also a bill regarding the takeout liquor, that right now the restaurants are allowed to sell liquor to go with food orders only, same prices as you would on premise. That'll be interesting if that continues. That expires in May. So all these things are kind of in flux right now, and how that affects their bottom line and their business models and what they do is going to be interesting. But that's been pretty topsy-turvy, having the restaurants being able to sell alcohol to go as well. So again, this is all going to flow over the next few months to see what the state makes permanent in that respect.
Anyone else? Sarah?
Hi, thanks. Thank you, Amy. I was able to watch the select board meeting, and I really appreciated this discussion about accessibility in particular, because I think that we've been doing over time, as the sidewalks downtown have been kind of like the bricks have been relayed. There's been really like discussion about that mobility issues beyond just wheelchairs. And so one of my concerns this summer with the outdoor dining was if, like the narrowest parts, like in front of Rose and Crown, not to pick on them, but, and then it's really difficult for people to go through. So, if you think about any of those ADA, compliance pieces also benefit people with strollers, benefit people with, canes, or, I hurt my foot and I didn't have a device that helped me, but going off the sidewalk and into the street was really difficult. So I think, I appreciate that that's being considered. And that was my main concern about the sidewalk piece. And I can imagine for other businesses besides the restaurants, the other businesses where traffic's being diverted maybe away from, the business because of outdoor dining might be more difficult. The other thing from that meeting I appreciated too is thinking about, from this group anyway, the point that was made about, we're talking about like outdoor dining specifically, and so obviously restaurants, but that the downtown area as a whole is for everyone. And so those, I don't have the answer, but just thinking through, as you're saying, Amy, sort of like the master plan for the downtown. So not just thinking, okay, what are we going to do for outdoor dining, and what are we going to do for parking, and what are we going to do for X, Y, and Z for stroll? It's like, I really appreciate what you're saying about thinking of it as a whole. So everyone liked the downtown feel at night and more people downtown and making it lively, but that fairness piece goes not only for business to business, but people, different people utilizing the downtown. So can you get downtown? Is the lighting, appropriate for where the people are eating versus where people are, pedestrian flow is moved to? So I really appreciate that all of this is being brought up. And one of the questions I have for you, Amy, is in terms of the proposals that people will have to put in for outdoor dining and using these public spaces, how far down that road are we, if what's going to be on those proposals? And thinking for 2022, I know that you were saying that there's going to be kind of like a common deadline. What's the timeline on that just yet? Okay, that was like a lot of things all at once.
Yeah, writing them down. No, all very good points. And so go ADA, yes. This whole process, Brenda locally, and then Mickey Rowland, and then the state, getting involved. They contacted me. it was a good avenue for me to learn a lot of this. You know, we know accessibility rules. I've done events forever, and I need to have this many bathrooms for this kind of people. I need to make sure everything's accessible. But this brought forward all of these rules, and we're starting to actually apply them to a lot of things that hadn't been before. I've been in this town with a broken ankle and crutches, and my gosh, I thought Boston was bad. It was difficult. So I appreciate that. The Rose and Crown area, we kept remolding. They had a lot more tables at first, and I ended up blocking the parking spaces, because even when we tried to open it up, I got rid of their table. I said, you need to have 4 feet at least to get through. People just kept going in the street no matter what we did. Like, geez. So I put that there just so people wouldn't walk into traffic with trucks. So it was a learning experience for sure. And, you know, places like India Street, that sidewalk's awful. You know, they want to put some tables there. I'm like, and then that leads into the effect on the other people. And certainly the ADA, we're working with them, and that's going to be a very important part of it. The effect on the other businesses is coming out now. I've heard from several of them that were very nice with these things and actually, you know, decorated their areas, but have really come to me and said, our business suffered. People had trouble finding us between 2 dining areas. You know, we were kind of crushed in there and stuff like that. So we understand that, and having the big kind of things that everyone put together that's not going to work moving forward. Again, we need to have public spaces. If I think about when I go to Europe, it's plazas. And they don't have a street going between the businesses. It's a brick plaza, and there's a couple tables for the cafe, and the restaurant or the retail might have something out there as well. So it was fun to do for this once in a lifetime, hopefully, crisis. But again, it's a much bigger conversation on that, because we are coming up with the businesses that were directly affected. And I'm going to make sure that that doesn't happen next year. We certainly are going to accommodate that in those areas. That's why I don't think closing streets is really the way to go right now. And work on that master plan as well. Proposals as far as timelines and all that. Right now, we're in the middle of annual renewals, which I got right here. The annual restaurants, we have 101 liquor licenses. Just a lot. A little less than half are annual. They have to go through renewal with the state and with us right now. Seasonals do that in the month of March. Seasonals are April 1st to January 15th, and then annuals obviously are all year round. So part of that process now is renewing the licenses and getting information on who wants to keep what, who is going to be looking for what, getting that basic for the private property locations, fairgrounds, for example. Do you want to keep what you have? How many seats? What are you looking for? Then we're going to go through and review with planning, with zoning, because a lot of zoning and different special permit things were put on hold. Certain parking restrictions for Mid-Island here in different districts, they were allowed to have things and not have to meet the parking requirements. So a lot of that stuff was put on hold. We're looking at who wants to do what first to see what review they need. Do they need to go to the planning board? They need to go to the ZB. What do they need to do first to get it approved, and then go through our process? So that's happening now with the annuals as far as private spaces. That'll happen with seasonals as well. I'm going to ask them, what do you want to do? Who wants to keep what? And then go from there and tackle it. Some, we might be a direct no. Millie's, you can't add to your occupancy because of septic reasons and other things. So some will be able to look at right away and say, nope, that was a fun 2 years, but we can't increase your occupancy. Others will give them a process. So that's happening now. The goal is always to have them able to open and be ready April 1st when seasonal starts. So I always like to make sure, or at the very least by May, when they all want to get going, that whatever paperwork we have to do is done in time to give the state to review, because state has to review as well. The public spaces, we're still working out what that looks like. I'd like to do that this fall so that in January, the January through April 1st timeline, when everyone's getting things together and getting the paperwork done, that we have that process in place for at least sidewalks if we do, so that the board has time to consider those locations. So that's kind of all in process, but the public space thing, of course, will be public at select board and things like that. We'll put that forward there. So does that answer kind of where we are? It's a busy month. So yeah.
Matt, 1 second. Mary, did you have your hand up before?
Yeah, I wanted to thank Amy for being here, first of all, and you hit all the hot buttons that I had on my little list: ADA, signage, lighting. Trash is another one. We have to deal with
Yes.
trash. And my other question is sort of movement of public safety vehicles. I think that's, obviously
Yes.
foremost, which I know is on your, hot button list. But I think also it's a time to reflect on all of downtown. So I was happy to hear you talking about the overall package. I think as some businesses may have been sold and have new owners, I think it's a good time to maybe educate people on what has always historically been our downtown look. I'm glad to see that, investments in umbrellas with logos on them were wonderful, because it allowed people to open when we didn't know anyone was going to be able to open.
Right.
And I think all of the, extra things about extending premises, and I think the other issue I have is the being equitable with whatever fee structure. Is it going to be on seats? Is it going to be on square footage? Is it going to be on revenue? I think we need to be equitable for a lot of different businesses. I think Broad Street worked very well for sidewalk dining because of the size of the sidewalk. So I think there's those logistical things, but I think you hit a lot of it. And I think if we include retail in on this discussion, I think you'll get the overall look that we want to, make sure comes back, or if nothing else continues the way we want it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And I'll say one, trash. That is the town manager's biggest, trust me, trash thing is on our list. We hear it all the time. So I agree. And we certainly have to have an agreement with these folks, a little bit stronger wording and agreement with all these businesses. And I think that's part of the plan.
And Josh, through you, one more thing: streetlights. I know we've had some issues with, DPW and all, which I understand, transition's hard, but I think I counted last August, there were 8 or 9 streetlights out in Main Street to Broad Street to, and that certainly doesn't help with uneven bricks and cobblestones. So thank you.
Correct.
Matt, and then Peter.
I kind of have a two-part question here. One, does the town have a kind of a long-term idea or plan for sidewalk improvements for the downtown area? And I know it's historic and everything, but we also look at the reality of things. They need to be improved with the amount of traffic that we're putting on them. And two, are any of the businesses offering or have offered to help pay for their sidewalk improvements, either around their establishments or?
So I'll take that. As far as, and I don't know if Jan has any more to offer, there is long-term sidewalk improvements. I know they're going in front of the town building right now. So I can't speak to the exact nature and timing of that. I know they've been working on that, and it is going forward because, and again, there's some like India Street that are just really need that help. Help paying, that wouldn't probably work that way because of, different places these funds are coming from. So I think there's some grants and some other things going forward that money's been used for. So, but what they would do, and I'll go back to something Mary said, as far as how we're looking to charge, or fees rather, for this. So there's permitting fees, which like in Cambridge, I think they do a $500 a year or something for a sidewalk fee. But then I think we would determine number of seats as well, because I think that's, square footage, someone might put less seats, but what's the revenue coming off of number of seats? So number of seats is something we haven't been uh, cataloging in these restaurants, which is something I want to change. So that's going to be the bigger picture there too, as well, to help with that situation. So yes, so there is a long-term plan. And some of this I'm talking about is things I want to see happen. So it's, I'm trying to marry this all together and encourage that happens too as well. So it's a process, obviously, there. So yes.
All right, Peter.
Amy, as I understand it, you're going to be interfacing with all of these people on the narrow issue of, how we're going to get you licensed and up and running. And I want to just make a point here, a general point. I'm not sure exactly how you would do this, but I think it's really critical to recognize that we have a natural experiment that occurred here, and there's a wealth of knowledge to be extracted from it, not only about what works and what doesn't work, but tailored to each individual that you're going to be talking to. And my suggestion would be somehow to possibly put together an informal, half a dozen questions that you'd like answers to, with the prefaced by, we don't want you to game this. We just want to know a couple of things that'll help us take advantage of whatever opportunities might have presented themselves, not just to you, but all the people on the street, so that we can think big about this. And to me, the questions would try to elicit this kind of a answer. It would have worked if only I could have had X, or I was real close to it working, and a little more of something would have really put me beyond a threshold where I could say, yeah, now I could try something different that would be much more efficient, economies of scale. Another thing is, I tried to do it. I tried every which way, and the basic barrier to it working is X, and I'm not going to be able to really think big about this until that's solved. Once you get that very diverse set of experiences, you can begin to think about what the underlying common opportunities are and constraints, and you can subset them by street to say, on this street, everybody had a problem with X and we can't solve it, so it is what it is. On this other street, if it weren't for Y, all of these people could say, I could have really done a good job here. And that might be one street that's a candidate for our future transportation planner to say, well, could we close this down and would it work?
Right.
And I think just gathering, not a lengthy questionnaire, but just some impressionistic things, so you can sort out the commonalities, could inform your thinking. And what I'm seeing is that when you have a natural experiment like this, you're probably going to spot one or two or three things that are real hidden opportunities. And you're probably going to you're going to have a better idea of the things that you already knew were constraints, and then you can sort them into, well, can we do anything about this or not?
Right. No, thank you. That was a very eloquent way of putting it. And I generally hate math if X is Y and Z, but that was I like that presentation of that.
And one other thing I want to say is, I think if you can, instead of making the interchange between you and the restaurant or whoever it is,
Right.
Appear to be something where they have to game it so they're going to get what they want, just say, look, this is a separate thing. We're trying to figure out the big picture and what can work where, with the idea of possibly doing X, possibly doing Y, and making a transformation of the downtown area. I continue to believe that there's a rationale for closing a few streets, if not every day, weekends.
He freeze.
We lost you, Peter.
Yeah. No, I'm done.
Oh.
That
I'm
was
done.
that was Very helpful. Thank you. And yeah, I agree, definitely. And there's certain cases. It's funny you bring up the future transportation manager, because I've been hearing those talks too. And that's who I was thinking of in the sidewalk improvements and stuff, because I know Mike had started that too as well. So I'm hoping that works out, because that'll help me too, someone with that expertise and stuff like that to help in that area. But you're absolutely right. That's why I'm thinking in my head, there's Oak Street, there's certain areas that I think could work. How can they work, and how can they benefit a lot of people, and what did work? Because I think those restaurants might necessarily not use it. But thank you. I'd come back to you and ask you for certain questions that I can put out there. But I appreciate that very much, because I think it's not a all or nothing. It's not a absolutely not, absolutely yes. There's, as much as sometimes the board wants me to give them, are we doing this yes or doing this no? And it's like, well, maybe for this and in this area. So I think that might actually help in that decision. So thank you. Thank you. I probably will come back to you for more, if that's okay, at some point, to help with
Sure.
that. Thank you. Thank you. If others,
Anyone else?
let's see.
Liz?
I wanted to thank Amy for coming as well. I did see your presentation at the Board of the Select Board, and which gave a lot of information, and it was really very thorough, which was awesome. And I'm glad we're talking about this. I think it's a great idea. Actually, from down at Highline, we had a lot of feedback from passengers leaving, like the exit poll kind of thing.
Right.
And people really, we heard a fair amount about it, which was nice. So I think it's definitely worthwhile going forward and making a plan to make it work. I did in your presentation with the Select Board, I did hear a fair amount of discussion about fairness between the different businesses. And I know that is going to be something that you guys are going to have to tackle. But, it might come in maybe an adjustment to the businesses that aren't able to actually do this because of where their location is, or, just feasibility. I think staffing probably played into it this summer, quite honestly, as it did with everyone. So anyway, I just wanted to thank you for coming and giving us a chance to, speak with you and get some more information.
Thank you. Thank you. And those are very good points. Certainly, well, first, as you know, life isn't fair, and we do as best we can. And there's some locations, some people said, oh, we should get money back because we didn't do anything. It's, well, when this started, it was like, oh, if the town doesn't do something for the public spaces because all the private folks have extra space, and then we did, and then we were bad because we did. And so it's trying to find that in the middle to help as most people as possible as well. So, hopefully, we can do that with certain fees and different things of that sort as well. That's similar to what a private property owner would deal with. There was, what else did you say that I wanted to say? One other, let's see. Okay, totally lost that in my head that I was going to respond to you on as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's out of my head. Yeah, it'll come back. I thought I wrote it all down. The other thing too, that Mary brought up about, the transfers and change of ownerships and stuff. That's where my head is right now. There are so many transfers going on and so many complicated people coming in and wanting to do things. And, I meet with them all personally too, and discuss it and discuss Nantucket if they don't know, and discuss how it works. So that's a big thing going on right now. But in a sense is good because we can train them from the beginning and try to work with them that way. So we're going to see a lot of change, a lot of transfer. Oh, I know the other part we were saying is staffing being an issue. And part of the discussion is, I'm trying to say to the town, look, we can't make any knee-jerk decisions based on this past summer. It was crazy. It was a lot of people, but so was, I have a friend going to Hawaii today. They were begging airlines not to send people, other Hamptons had issues. I don't want to make knee-jerk decisions until we know, is this a long-term trend? Is everything coming out? How is this all going to work itself out with COVID? Everyone traveled at the same time. Everyone was working from home. Kids were in school. People stayed here longer. People brought their vehicles that normally would not. No one could get rental cars. So it's difficult to understand if that's a long-term trend or how this all shakes out. So that's where I want to be careful too as well, so that we have other options as we move forward, possibly some other temporary closures, different types of activities for everyone, and see how we all give ourselves time to come out of this and figure out. But I do think, just like our grandparents did in the Depression, they lived their whole lives with PTSD from that. We're going to have the same thing. We're going to want to be outdoors. We're going to want space. We're going to want to be, no matter how we come out of this, we'll always have that inclination. So it's plans moving forward, I think, should consider that, regardless of what we do. So there's no going back to normal. It's how does normal move forward? So I think we consider that, we'll be better off. So that's it.
Anyone else? Matt?
Yeah, I just had a question. How are a lot of the restaurants kind of approaching it as well? Are as far kind of what Sarah said with the applications, but are they actually submitting plans and kind of saying this is what we would like to do? Or are they kind of saying, are they trying to lay it on you guys to plan it?
Yeah, well, we're trying to learn better, and we're doing this with events too. And I know you were on the events call, to set what our parameters are and standards are, and that those wanting to do something to kind of step up. We've kind of enabled some of this behavior. It's kind of like a personal thing we're enabling in this relationship. And so we're learning to do that, where they have to do that. And as far as who's people, some have known from the beginning, some of the private spaces, they've wanted to continue this expansion, and that's fine. And they have the plans already and they have those set up. But what I'm also seeing, the trend is a lot of long closures this winter. A lot of people, there's still a couple not sure they're opening for stroll. It's going to depend on staffing. So that particular problem is going to hit us throughout this winter. There's people closing for 4 or 5 months. Technically, as an annual, you're not supposed to close longer than 3 days a week, whatever. We obviously are a little looser. You have to ask permission from the local licensing authority. So I put out the request form when I left on Friday, and I've gotten several back of pretty long closures. We had voted in a fee for closures longer than 60 days. I think we're probably going to waive that for this year. But so I think people are sitting back going, I don't know what this is going to be. If this does increase my capacity, I don't know if I'll be able to staff it. However, they want more space, I think, like I mentioned earlier, just because people in general are going to want more space. So I haven't been deluged with plans, no. But I think it's just going to be a process over this winter as everyone kind of comes out of it, sees how they did, and tries to figure out how to not have this staffing problem. You had people closing on a Saturday in August. You don't make that up, because of staffing. So I think they're all just trying to assess it right now. So that's what I'm seeing. I had a couple, and I'm trying to do is avoid forcing people to become seasonals, because if they close for long periods of time, technically they're supposed to apply to be a season from January to April. So that's kind of where we are right now. Like I said, not wanting to make knee-jerk reactions based on what happened this summer, but trying to come up with plans to make sure it doesn't. So it's going to be a active winter conversation wise. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Anyone else? Amy, you had brought up the private land outdoor spaces a couple times. So for instance, the box, they have that, AstroTurf fenced in. Is that now permanent, or is there any question there? Or
so all those spaces, like the box, like Fairgrounds, the Muse, What they're having to do now with us for renewal is indicate their desire to move forward with continuing in that space. And then what they have to do is what they would have to do normally if they were adding space, if the box was increasing their patio size, there's a legal process they have to go through. So they have to go through that now. What the state of emergency did was allow us to locally approve these expansions without going through that process, without going to the state. Now, because of liquor service, this has to go through the process. So like I mentioned before, they indicate they want to do it. I asked number of seats, kind of the plans. We have planning look at it. Is there anything that needs to be done? The MCD or whatever else has, you need this number of parking spaces. Well, does Island Kitchen's expansion, take up too many spaces? Well, they may have to get a waiver. They may have to go to ZBA. They may have to do something. So we're going to be in that probably in the next month or two review period to see what it would take to move their application forward. But again, there's some cases like Millie's where it'd be an absolute no.
Right.
Can't. So it's assessing who can move forward with the application process. So there's an established legal process that they now have to go through. Once we go through all our stuff, go to select boards, public hearing for all these spaces, number of seats, location, ABCC rules. If we approve it locally, then it goes to the ABCC in the state for final approval called alteration of premises. And so then that will be part of their license. And we can make it seasonal. We can make it a seasonal approval, whereas they only are able to operate it from April to October, or however we establish the hours and time and date of the expansion. So that's kind of what we're going through a review, but it would all be public if they have to go to any boards for that.
And we've seen a few more food trucks pop up during the last couple of years. Are they facing new hurdles as well, getting back to normal or?
Yeah, so food trucks, food trucks. So food trucks, yes, they are the vein of my existence, and not all of them, but so when this started popping up and when I first kind of came into this position, like, I don't know, 2016, we created a general set of guidelines for food units, locations, not in the core, not within 500 feet of an established common vicular, different things like that. And, it exploded. And with the pandemic, everyone wants to be mobile. Everyone wants to be, that sort of thing. And I get it. And they see it in the cities and, oh, it's cool. We should have a mobile food park, stuff like that. So it became, a whole different animal that we have to get under control. I've written a whole set of regulations. We're going through with health. We determine there's definitions with health, definitions with zoning and planning that differ, that we're trying to get together, get those together. And the other part of that, and that will be done ASAP, so that for the season in January, when we do renewals and new licenses, we are very well stacked with that. We may consider a limit. And we are going to institute a location permit, because half my day is a couple of these folks who bought units before even calling anyone to get permits, which is bad on them when no business plan is, oh, can I go here? Can I go there? Can I do this? Can I, cook out of my house? No, you can't cook out of your house. You can't sell in your neighborhood, and they're just doing it. So it has been draining on our resources dealing with it. So that's going to be tightened up to where the location permits are basically making sure all the zoning rules are met. I'm going to make the core a restricted area, going to make the mid-island group here a restricted area, and then, set up the standards if the school wants to have them. I've talked to the school about their process, the beaches, things of that sort, so that we don't go through this again, that this is established. And, if we put a limit on it, we put a limit on it. But yeah, it's been a draining year on mobile food units, and the whole do not buy the unit until you get reviewed.
Right.
You don't have to buy a unit.
Right.
So sorry, I'm venting now. So we're working on it. It's coming. There's a board meeting near you. Yeah.
All right. All right. We're getting close to the end of our time with you here. Does anyone have any last question?
Good.
All right. Well, Amy, thank you so much for joining us today. You've shared a lot of great information with us, and
Thank you.
thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. And
Thanks,
thank you. You guys gave me a lot of great useful information here to help me. So I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure I'll be back soon.
All right.
Thank you all. And again, and anyone here, certainly, if you have questions or want to reach out, please do.
Okay. Thank
Okay?
you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, Amy.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Amy.
All right. Janet, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, good morning. I'll give you my director's report of what I've been
Sure.
up to. We're continuing to have meetings about the 4th of July, and there will be some kind of migration of activities to Children's Beach, but we're also rethinking how to use Main Street for some activities and changing the time of some events like the Declaration of Independence. So we've been in touch with businesses, the Chamber, and the Unitarian Church to come up with a new kind of schedule. And we're having a meeting about those discussions later this morning. And there will be some kind of water contest, again on Main Street, but it will not invite the public to participate with bazookas or water guns or water balloons. There'll be like one fire truck has to try to beat the other fire truck in filling up a 55-gallon drum in a fenced off area on Main Street. So we are rethinking those activities and opportunities. And also the using Federal Street and Center Street between India and Main Street as staging areas for different kinds of activities as well. I'm involved with the DEI strategic planning process to come up with what the goals and strategies are going to be for addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion in the town. Issued a notice to cultural organizations last Friday about 2 cultural grant opportunities that the Department of Culture and Tourism is providing, actually the Cultural District is providing to cultural organizations. Total of about $17,000 available to the cultural organizations. I am a member of the events committee for One Book, One Island, and they will be launching their announcement about that in 2 weeks from today on a Zoom meeting. The book is called Midnight Library. It's a great book. Working with the WPI group on a government or citizens academy program. They've interviewed me once, and I'll be interviewed again by them. I spoke to Rotary last week about how we spent summer at Culture and Tourism and some of the activities of the Cultural District. And I want to thank Mary and Liz for volunteering at Halloween, and to Matt, and I think I saw Sarah downtown too, at the Halloween event on a week ago Sunday. That was fun. Had a big crowd out there. And that's what I've been up to. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Janet? All right, David.
Hang on. Okay. So I submitted the stats for October, and we had 2,451 total. That's between the main office and Straight Wharf Kiosk, which opened early in October, and then we closed it after the weather, and less boats coming in after the middle of the month. Also, we had 220 phone calls, 33 of which were lodging inquiries, and then we had 1 placement, which seems to be consistent with the last 2 years. Our mailings were up over 2019. And of course, the weekly restaurant list continues to fly away as being one of our most popular downloads on our website with 78, 79. And then people downloaded the travel and lodging brochure 394 times. Speaking of the brochure, I'm starting the process to update for 2022. Last year, or this year in 21, we had an online only version. So we're going to get back to a handout paper version for 22, and there's going to be a number of updates with new lodging, new members, new owners. As Amy kind of indicated, there's some new people coming along. And the office is open 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. And after Stroll, we'll probably be closed on weekends because I won't have any staff after that point. They're gonna have a well-deserved winter break. And but Janet and I will be there, so we'll be there during the week, Monday through Friday. So we'll be happy to answer any questions. I'm done. So.
All right, any questions for David? All right, we do have a meeting in December, right?
You do, yes.
Yep.
I don't have a topic yet, if anybody's got an idea.
Yeah, anyone have anything that they've noticed or anything that would be, Liz?
Sharon and I are going to be meeting actually next weekend and talking about the stranded passenger situation. I had a lengthy conversation with Andrew down at the Coast Guard Station. They had to deal with it as well as on a smaller degree that I had to deal with it in July. But they're very interested in being part of it as well. They do have 12 cots that they can donate at any given time. But anyway, I don't know if you want to talk about that or something else. We can certainly give you the information that we've found out. I did find out a little bit more about what the situation is with the town and the Red Cross holding all of the things that they need. But anyway, that we could go into that all in a meeting if you guys wanted to.
I don't know who I'd bring in for that conversation. I would imagine it would have to be emergency management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that still Dave Franz?
But they've made it clear to me and to my department that they're only going to open the gym for a weather-related emergency.
Correct.
I mean, it is a problem though. I mean, just people sleeping on the street because a boat gets canceled, I guess. But that would be interesting. Is Dave Franzuto still the head of?
No,
No,
he's been gone forever.
Okay.
The challenge we have really with the stranded passenger issue is we need a stranded passenger emergency coalition organized. And the starting point is to say who could be part of this. Everybody kind of looks around and says, well, we need this, we need that, but somebody has to be in charge of saying when the stranded passenger thing occurs, it's like a natural disaster and we have to have an emergency plan and it has to activate those different parties that can be part of the solution. And I mean, I start out by saying, who's part of that coalition? That's really the first question. And I think that's a good idea for December if there's nothing else that would bump it off as a higher priority thing. But this is a good time to start thinking about that.
Well, I think Janet makes a good point is maybe that, obviously the town has to decide if they have bandwidth for that, but it seems like the emergency services person might be the go-to, right?
Yeah, I would have to check with the chief of police and the fire chief and see what they would recommend. And they may not have the capacity to send somebody to the meeting either, so.
Right. All right, well, let's just use that as a suggestion for the moment. Matt?
I was wondering if what about inviting somebody from the Chamber of Commerce to kind of give us a recap of their year and kind of the things they've seen in town and things like that. Just hear some feedback from them.
Right. I guess that could be Alicia Carney. I don't think they've hired a new director yet.
But there's no new executive director yet.
right.
But I think Alicia's term is up and
she's stepping down in January, I believe.
yeah, so there'll be a new, and those are president roles.
Mm-hmm.
So I know some of us sit on the events committee and we're meeting tomorrow, I think.
All right, well, we can see who's available and discuss it offline, and Janet will send an email to everybody. But once again, it'll be the second Tuesday, right? which is
14th.
the 14th.
I think it's the 14th.
Okay.
Not sure.
Correct.
All right, perfect. All right, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn if anyone doesn't have anything else. All right, motion to
Okay.
adjourn the Tuesday, November 9th, 2021 meeting of the Visitor Services Advisory Committee. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, we are adjourned and see you all next month.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
bye. Bye.
Dan,